My unlucky, lucky day. They say Friday the 13th is cursed. A day when black cats cross your path, mirrors shatter without reason, and misfortune waits at every corner. For most people, it's a date they circle in red on their calendars. Not to celebrate, but to dread. Me? I woke up that morning with an odd thrill buzzing under my skin. The world expected disaster, but all I could think about was bargains. Yes, bargains. While others were avoiding ladders and knocking on wood, I was refreshing discount websites and scribbling down addresses of garage sales, thrift stores, and outlet shops, rumored to have insane markdowns. Something about the superstition excited me. If everyone else stayed away, wouldn't that mean I had the best chance to scoop up treasures at rock-bottom prices? Friday the 13th wasn't going to scare me. It was going to make me rich in the only way I cared about, with cheap, glorious steals. Still, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little on edge. When I brushed my teeth, the bathroom light flickered. My phone alarm glitched, repeating the same eerie buzz until I shut it off. Even my cat stared at me strangely, as if it knew I was tempting fate. I laughed it off. Fear was for people who didn't know the thrill of spotting a designer jacket for $10 or a brand new coffee maker for the price of a sandwich. So I made myself a promise. This Friday the 13th, I wouldn't let paranoia rule me. Instead, I'd flip the script. While others cowered in their homes, I'd be out there, hunting. My heart raced, not with dread, but with excitement. Today wasn't about curses or ghosts. Today was about the art of the bargain. Little did I know, bargains sometimes come with a price. By 8 in the morning, I was already caffeinated and armed with a list of targets like a soldier going to war. First stop, the online flash sales. My laptop screen glowed with countdown timers, little red banners screaming, "Final offer," and "Friday the 13th madness." My fingers flew over the keyboard as if my life depended on it. Within minutes, I scored a pair of sneakers I'd been eyeing for months. Retail price $120, mine for just $19.99. It felt like stealing, except legal and delivered in a cardboard box. But the real thrill was waiting outside. I grabbed my backpack and hit the streets. The city felt eerily quiet, as though people were hiding from bad luck. Fewer cars, fewer shoppers, more space for me. At the first outlet store, I found racks marked down 70%. There, hidden between tacky t-shirts and forgotten winter coats, I pulled out a sleek blazer that fit me perfectly. Tag said $250, price at the register, $12. My grin nearly split my face. Next was a neighborhood garage sale. A young couple was selling half their furniture before moving abroad. I walked away with a coffee table that looked almost brand new, plus a set of wine glasses I definitely didn't need but couldn't resist. $5 for all. I lugged them awkwardly down the street, ignoring the way an old woman crossing herself whispered, "Not today," as she passed me. By midday, my list was half conquered. The trunk of my car was filling up with treasures, clothes, gadgets, random home goods, all at prices that made my thrifty heart sink. Instead of feeling cursed, I felt blessed, like Friday the 13th was my secret lucky charm. The more deals I scored, the more invincible I felt, as though I was outsmarting fate itself. Standing there with sweat on my forehead, wallet lighter but spirit soaring, I couldn't help but laugh. People avoided this day in fear of accidents and shadows. Me, I was living proof that fortune favored the bold, or at least the bargain hunter. What I didn't know then was that fate has a sense of humor and it doesn't like being mocked. By the time the sun climbed higher, my shopping spree had turned into a personal triumph. My car trunk was a treasure chest, my wallet surprisingly not yet drained, and my confidence unshakable. But then the glitches began. At the third outlet store, my phone suddenly froze mid-payment screen, buzzing with a distorted vibration that made the cashier frown. When I finally swiped my card, it was declined twice. Embarrassed, I muttered something about bank security and tried again. On the third attempt, it went through, but the cashier's smile never reached her eyes. She handed me the receipt like she was giving away a bad omen. I shrugged it off, but it didn't stop there. In the parking lot, my car alarm went off on its own, blaring like a siren in the empty lot, echoing against the concrete walls. I pressed the key fob again and again until it silenced, leaving my heart pounding. When I glanced up, I caught a man standing across the lot, just watching me. He was old, with a weather-beaten face and a hat pulled low. When our eyes met, he shook his head slowly, almost pityingly, before disappearing behind a row of cars. Later, at a bustling flea market, I spotted a box of vintage records, the kind collectors fight over. I was practically drooling as I flipped through them when the same old man appeared again, leaning on a cane. His voice rasped low, like gravel dragged across stone. "Be careful what you take today. Friday the 13th doesn't give without taking." The words prickled under my skin. I laughed nervously, pretending not to care. "It's just a superstition," I muttered, stuffing a rare record into my bag. But deep down, something twisted in my gut. It was the way he said it, not as a warning, but as if he already knew the ending to my story. I shook it off. Deals like these didn't come every day. Superstitions couldn't stop me now. With every bag I carried, I felt luckier, almost invincible, as though fate itself was rewarding me. But fate, I was soon to learn, has a nasty habit of balancing its books. The afternoon heat was pressing down on me when I stumbled upon a narrow alley I had never noticed before. The main street was buzzing with life, but this alley was strangely quiet, as if sound itself had been swallowed whole. At the very end, almost hidden in shadow, stood a crooked little shop with the faded sign that simply read, "Second Chances." The letters were chipped and peeling, but something about it pulled me in, like a magnet tugging at my bones. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of dust, leather, and something faintly metallic. The shop was cluttered, but not messy. Shelves lined with old books, racks of forgotten clothes, glass cases filled with trinkets that seemed to whisper stories I couldn't hear. The place felt suspended in time. I rubbed my hands together, excitement flaring. This was the jackpot, the kind of hidden gem bargain hunters dream about. Almost immediately, my eyes landed on a wristwatch locked in a glass cabinet. It was heavy looking, the kind of piece that screamed old money and timeless class. When I asked the clerk, an unnervingly pale woman with jet black hair, about the price, she murmured, $30. I nearly laughed in her face. A watch like that would fetch hundreds, maybe thousands. Yet here it was, practically begging to be mine. On the next rack, I discovered a vintage film camera, its body worn but intact. I lifted it to my eye and pressed the shutter. The click echoed strangely loud in the empty store. $10, the woman said flatly, as if daring me not to take it. My heart raced. $10 for something that looked like it belonged in a collector's auction? And then, as if fate wanted to crown me king of bargain hunters, I spotted a coat. Not just any coat, but a long, dark trench coat that looked as if it had stepped straight out of a luxury catalog. The fabric was immaculate, the lining soft, the fit perfect when I tried it on. Price tag? $25. My hands shook as I pulled out my wallet. I brought the items to the counter, barely able to contain my grin. The pale clerk didn't scan them. She simply stared at me, her eyes sharp, her lips curving into the faintest trace of something that wasn't quite a smile. In a whisper, she asked, "Are you sure you want these? They come with a story." Her words prickled against my skin, but the thrill of the deal drowned out the unease. A story. Perfect. Every treasure deserved a legend. I told her yes, of course I wanted them. And as the old cash register rang with a heavy ding, I felt as though I had just beaten Friday the 13th at its own twisted game. At least that's what I thought. When I got home, the thrill of my victorious haul still buzzed in my chest. I dumped everything onto the living room floor like a pirate laying out treasure after a raid. The clock, the vintage camera, the sleek black coat. I stared at them with a grin so wide, it almost hurt. All this for less than the price of a cheap dinner, I thought. Friday the 13th? Please. I had outsmarted superstition. But then the lights flickered. At first, I laughed it off. Old wiring, I told myself. But the second time, the bulbs didn't just flicker. They pulsed, as though someone was slowly turning a dimmer switch back and forth. The shadows stretched unnaturally long across the room, and for a second, I swear I saw them bend, as if they weren't following me but watching me. The clock chimed. I froze. It wasn't plugged in. I hadn't even wound it. Yet it ticked steadily, and the golden hands pointed at exactly 13:13. That's not even a real time, I muttered, suddenly aware that the hairs on my arms were standing straight up. I shoved the clock aside and grabbed the camera. Maybe I just needed distraction. I lifted it, aimed it at the mirror across the room, and clicked. The shutter made a sharp, metallic snap that echoed louder than it should have. I pulled the film advance lever, curious to see if it worked. Something about that sound made me feel off. Hours later, when I developed the first roll in my tiny bathroom darkroom, my chest tightened. The images weren't right. Faces of strangers blurred into mine, eyes where they shouldn't be, mouths stretched into impossible shapes. In one picture, I saw myself, but behind me, there was a tall figure cloaked in shadow, even though I knew I had been completely alone. The coat was next, black, heavy, luxurious. I slipped it on, hoping to shake off the unease. But as the fabric settled on my shoulders, a sharp cold pierced through my skin, sinking deep into my bones. My reflection in the mirror didn't look right. My smile seemed twisted, not mine. I tore it off and threw it on the couch. That was when I remembered the old man's words at the market. Be careful what you take today. Friday the 13th doesn't give without taking. Suddenly, the thrill of the hunt didn't feel so triumphant anymore. My house creaked and groaned as if something unseen had moved in with me. The air thickened, heavy with the smell of dust and rust, even though the windows were wide open. And from the corner of my eye, I swore I saw the hands of the clock twitch, dragging themselves back to 13:13, no matter how many times I tried to adjust them. The bargains were no longer just bargains. They were something else. I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was no longer mine, that something unseen had followed me in along with the shopping bags. Curiosity gnawed at me harder than fear, so I did what any deal hunting addict would do. I Googled. The first item I searched was the clock. Its design was unique, carved wooden edges with a small, almost invisible scratch along the glass. It didn't take long before I stumbled on a local news archive. There it was, my clock, pictured in a police evidence photo. It had belonged to a young man who vanished under mysterious circumstances 5 years ago. His family had kept it, refusing to sell, until it too disappeared from their home. The article ended abruptly with the words, "Case unsolved. Last seen Friday the 13th. My throat went dry. Still, part of me whispered, "Coincidence. Just coincidence." I moved on to the camera. Vintage collectors' forums were buzzing about it, praising its rarity. But then one thread stopped me cold. The cursed Leica, last owned by investigative journalist Mark Halston, who died in a car crash while covering a story about cult rituals. Police found the camera intact in the wreckage, but none of his final photos were ever published. The negatives were said to be disturbing. The date of the crash? You guessed it, Friday the 13th. I wanted to stop there, but the coat lay sprawled across the couch like it was daring me. Against better judgment, I searched again. The result hit me harder than I expected. The coat had belonged to a young woman, her body found in an abandoned building downtown. The photo of the crime scene showed the coat half draped over her lifeless form. Detectives never solved her case, but the report noted something chilling. The coat was logged into evidence on Friday the 13th and later went missing from the station. My chest tightened. One by one, the dots connected. Every piece I'd picked up that day was not just secondhand junk, it was discarded tragedy. Friday the 13th had handed them to me, neatly wrapped in the disguise of a bargain. I suddenly realized what the old man had meant. This day didn't give without taking. Maybe the low prices weren't kindness from fate, but bait from something darker. And the scariest part? As I sat there, surrounded by my treasures, I couldn't help but feel that the price hadn't been paid yet. I had sat the whole night staring at those items, my mind spinning between two choices: throw them all away to regain some peace, or keep them as proof of the strangest bargain hunting adventure of my life. Every time I thought about tossing them out, the clock struck a chilling tick right at 13:13, as if to remind me that nothing was simple anymore. And whenever I tried to touch the camera, it trembled faintly in my hand, as though begging me to take just one last picture. In the end, I decided to return to that secondhand store, though unease gnawed at me. But when I reached that same street, my heart froze. The shabby little shop was gone, replaced by a wall, smeared with graffiti. No signboard, no creaky wooden door, no trace that it had ever existed. I asked the nearby vendors, but they only stared at me as if I were making up a story. They swore no such shop had ever been there. I carried the pile of items back home, my thoughts in turmoil. To throw them away felt like a waste, but keeping them made me restless. Truthfully, even now, I still hold on to a few pieces. Strangely, they bring me both fortune and inexplicable dread. The clock, aside from striking 1313, often signals the exact moments when I'm about to stumble upon another bargain. The camera, though producing distorted photos, sometimes captures scenes the naked eye cannot see, as if another world is lurking just beside mine. Night after night, I dream of that secondhand shop again, the dim yellow light spilling from inside, and the clerk's whisper, "Are you sure you want these?" Each time I wake, I ask myself, had I truly been lucky to get rare items at such cheap prices? Or had I unknowingly purchased a curse? The answer? I dare not say. All I know is that since that day, Friday the 13th has never been just about good or bad luck for me. It is a game, and I, whether I like it or not, have already become a player. Was I lucky or was I cursed?